Have you ever felt that despite having talent and opportunities, something invisible was holding you back financially? It's not just fear of failure or a lack of effort. It's a more subtle, more silent feeling that paralyzes you: shame. Financial shame is a hidden phenomenon that many people experience in silence, unaware of the devastating impact it has on their lives. Let me tell you the story of Richard, a sales manager who seemed to be on the right track to transform his life. In just 2 years, he went from an average salary to a high-profile position in his company, with a raise that could significantly upgrade his lifestyle. It was the kind of opportunity most people dream about, but Richard reacted in an unexpected way. Instead of celebrating and embracing new possibilities, he began to withdraw. He avoided networking events, skipped important meetings, and even turned down sales that could have earned him substantial bonuses. Friends and coworkers noticed the change, but Richard couldn't explain it. Internally, he felt a heavy weight: shame. Shame about seeming different from his old friends. Shame about being seen as the arrogant guy who made too much money. Shame about carrying a kind of success that felt out of place with his roots. This deep, quiet shame created an invisible wall that sabotaged his growth. What few people realize is that financial shame is far more common than it seems. A recent study found that over 60% of people feel ashamed when talking about money. And that feeling isn't just a passing discomfort. It's a real block that can prevent prosperity and progress. And the worst part? Shame doesn't show up as an obvious enemy. It disguises itself as doubt, procrastination, fear of judgment, and, very often, unconscious self-sabotage. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in today's video: the hidden side of money. Here on Cashfrenia, our goal is to uncover these invisible patterns that link your mind, emotions, and finances, so you can understand what's truly holding you back and, more importantly, how to break free from it. Get ready for a journey that goes beyond numbers and spreadsheets. We're going to talk about what happens inside your mind and heart when money is on the table, how to turn shame into power, fear into confidence, and stagnation into growth. Let's talk about the kind of shame that hides behind logic. The kind that doesn't shout, but quietly pulls you back every time you try to move forward. Richard didn't sabotage his career because he was ungrateful or irrational. He knew the promotion was a big deal. He knew he'd earned it. He knew his hard work had paid off. And yet, when the opportunity to elevate his lifestyle came, he froze. Not because of fear, but because something deep inside whispered, "You're not that kind of person." That whisper wasn't fear of failure. It was a disconnect between who he believed he was and who he was becoming. That's what financial shame does. It doesn't show up as panic or chaos. It appears as a quiet sense of guilt, a tension between your current life and your old identity. And that tension creates emotional friction every time you try to grow. This kind of shame isn't born out of spreadsheets or tax brackets. It's learned absorbed slowly through the words, expressions, and unspoken attitudes of the people around us. If you grew up in a family or culture where money was scarce, you probably heard things like, People with money lose their soul. He used to be humble, but look at him now. We may be poor, but at least we're honest. Must be nice, but that life's not for us. Phrases like these seem harmless, even protective. But over time, they form emotional landmines in your brain. They associate wealth with moral decay. They teach you that having more could cost you what matters most: your values, your relationships, your belonging. So when success comes knocking, a part of you resists. Not because you're afraid of money, but because you're afraid of what it might turn you into. Financial shame is especially powerful because it operates in silence. It shows up in ways most people don't even recognize. You turn down raises you secretly want. You undercharge for your work because you're just happy to help. You downplay your ambitions to seem more relatable. You say no to opportunities that feel too big, even if you're qualified. You feel anxious when your income grows faster than your peers. At its core, this isn't about finances, it's about identity and loyalty. When you grow up hearing that the rich are out of touch, greedy, or arrogant, then becoming successful feels like a betrayal. You start to feel like you're leaving people behind, like you're stepping into a version of yourself that no longer fits in. And if you associate financial success with rejection or judgment, your brain will do everything it can to keep you safe, even if that means keeping you small. That's the real danger of financial shame. It doesn't block you with walls. It locks you inside an old version of yourself, one that worked in survival mode, one that kept you accepted, one that didn't make waves. And unless you examine that old programming, you'll spend your life trying to grow, while unconsciously pulling yourself back. In this video, we're going to break that cycle. Because understanding where that shame comes from and how it works is the first step toward freeing yourself from it. Richard didn't look like someone destined for success, at least not on paper. He was born in a working-class neighborhood just outside Houston. His parents were hardworking but constantly stretched thin. Money wasn't discussed openly, was either absent or a source of tension. Like many kids in similar situations, Richard learned early on to keep his expectations low. Dreaming too big was risky. Better to stay grounded. But Richard couldn't help noticing things. He noticed how stressed his parents got near the end of every month. How quickly arguments would escalate when rent was due or the car broke down. He saw how hard his mom worked and how little it changed their situation. And quietly, deep inside, a question began to form. What if there's another way? That question turned into hunger, a silent ambition. Richard didn't talk about it much, but he began learning watching YouTube tutorials, reading blog posts, soaking up anything that gave him a roadmap out. He wasn't chasing luxury, he just wanted breathing room, freedom, dignity. In his early 20s, Richard landed a job as a junior sales rep at a mid-sized tech company. He was smart, likable, and a quick learner. While others coasted through onboarding, Richard was already reverse engineering the top performers' scripts and testing new approaches. In under a year, he outperformed half the sales team. He worked late. He volunteered for the worst territories. He followed up with leads everyone else had given up on. Slowly, his numbers climbed. People started noticing. At 26, Richard was offered a promotion, senior account manager, with a significant raise and performance bonuses. It was more than just money, it was validation, the kind of recognition he'd silently craved for years. But almost immediately, something shifted, something he hadn't expected. Instead of celebrating, he felt unsettled. The joy of achievement was followed by an unease he couldn't name. He found himself hesitating during calls, doubting his decisions, avoiding high-stakes meetings. At home, he couldn't enjoy the small upgrades he'd finally earned, a better apartment, a new laptop, even dinners out with friends. The guilt crept in slowly, like fog. He'd visit his parents and feel like he was showing off. He'd hear jokes from cousins. "Mr. Big Shot now, huh?" and laugh them off while feeling a punch in the gut. In group chats with old friends, he said less and less. They were talking about struggles. He didn't want to sound out of touch. Inside, Richard began shrinking. He stopped tracking commissions. He turned down a large account that would have doubled his income. When asked why, he said, "I don't want the pressure." But that wasn't the full truth. The real reason? He felt like he was becoming one of them. The people he'd heard about growing up, the ones who forgot where they came from, the ones who sold out, the ones who thought they were better. It didn't matter that he was still grounded, still generous, still connected to his roots. His internal identity hadn't caught up to his external reality. That mismatch created emotional turbulence. A voice inside kept whispering, "This isn't you. Don't go too far. Don't lose yourself." This is how financial shame begins its quiet sabotage. It doesn't stop you with obvious failure. It gently nudges you into underperforming just enough to stay below the threshold of discomfort. It convinces you to slow down, turn around, shrink back so you can remain acceptable, relatable, safe. And for Richard, as with so many others, that invisible ceiling wasn't placed by society. It was built in his own mind. Richard's fall didn't come as a dramatic crash. There was no public scandal, no catastrophic decision, no financial ruin. His downfall was much quieter and much more common. It started with hesitation, then came avoidance, then detachment. After his promotion, Richard had access to better clients, higher commissions, and leadership opportunities. He could have easily doubled his income in the next year. But he didn't. He stopped pushing. When big opportunities came, he'd find reasons to pass them on to others. He said things like, "I'm not sure I'm ready," or "It's not really my style." He downplayed his abilities. He started showing up late to team meetings. He withdrew from internal competitions. What looked like humility from the outside was, in reality, emotional sabotage. At home, he was restless. He felt like an imposter, like he was pretending to be someone he wasn't. He kept thinking about how people from his old neighborhood would see him now, and it made him uncomfortable. The more successful he became, the more disconnected he felt. Not from the company, but from himself. The guilt grew. He felt guilty that he could afford things his parents never had. Guilty that his friends were struggling while he was climbing. Guilty that he didn't feel comfortable anymore in either world. too ambitious for one, too self-conscious in the other. This is what shame does. It isolates, convinces you that your progress is proof of your betrayal. And once that belief takes hold, your brain starts protecting you, not by helping you grow, but by keeping you small. That protection looked like burnout, but it wasn't burnout. It was resistance. Psychological resistance to success that didn't align with his identity. Richard began saying no to new projects. He let accounts go cold. His performance dropped just enough to escape attention, but enough to miss bonuses. He told himself it was temporary, that he needed to recenter. But in reality, he was shrinking to fit back into a version of himself that felt familiar, one that didn't make others uncomfortable, one that didn't invite judgment. And that's what makes this kind of fall so dangerous. It's not loud, but slow. You don't even notice it until you re-back at a level that feels safe. Safe from judgment. Safe from envy. Safe from success that feels too big. But here's the problem. The version of Richard that played small wasn't the real him either. He wasn't content playing safe. He wasn't fulfilled avoiding growth. He was just afraid that if he reached his full potential, he'd lose everything that made him belong. This is the hidden cost of financial shame. It doesn't just block your wealth, it fractures your identity. You start believing you can't be both ambitious and accepted. That to move forward, you have to leave something sacred behind. And when that fear becomes real in your mind, success stops being exciting and starts feeling like a threat. Richard's story isn't just a personal anecdote. It's a reflection of a much deeper, more widespread issue that affects millions of people. The invisible programming that turns money into a source of shame. At the root of this pattern lies a psychological contradiction. We're taught to pursue success, but also warned to stay humble. We're told to chase opportunity, but not to become one of those people. And so, many of us grow up walking a tightrope, trying to improve our lives while avoiding the guilt of outgrowing where we came from. This inner conflict creates what psychology calls cognitive dissonance, a mental discomfort caused by holding two opposing beliefs. On one hand, you want to earn more, grow, thrive. On the other, you've internalized the idea that people who have money are selfish, cold, disconnected, or simply not like us. And if you've absorbed that idea, then every step toward success feels like a step away from who you were, a betrayal of your roots. Your mind reacts to that threat the way it reacts to anything it deems dangerous. It resists, it protects, it shuts down parts of you that would help you grow. That's how self-sabotage is born, not out of laziness, but out of loyalty to an outdated version of yourself. You procrastinate, you undercharge, you hide your achievements, you say no to opportunities that feel too big. Not because you, want them, because part of you is terrified of what accepting them might mean. This is the trap. The shame you feel around money isn't just about dollars, it's about identity and belonging. Humans are wired to seek connection. And if your community sees wealth as a threat or a sign of betrayal, your brain will do everything it can to keep you close to the group, even if it means keeping you stuck. This creates an invisible ceiling, a self-imposed limit on how far you allow yourself to go. And here's the tragic part. It doesn't matter how smart or capable you are. If your mind believes that success makes you less worthy of love or respect, it will quietly make sure you never get too far. So you hover, you settle, you play small. And the world never sees your full potential, not because you didn't have it, but because you were too loyal to the story that said you couldn't rise without losing yourself. But what if that story is wrong? What if you can rewrite it? The moment you begin to question the link between money and shame, between success and rejection, you reclaim your power. You realize you don't have to choose between belonging and thriving. You can be wealthy and grounded. You can grow and still honor where you came from. The real shift happens when you stop asking, "What will they think if I succeed?" and start asking, "What will it cost me if I don't?" Richard's story isn't about failure. It's about identity. It's about the invisible weight that so many carry, the guilt of growing, the fear of outshining, the shame of wanting more. Because somewhere along the way, success became a threat. Not just to your comfort zone, but to your sense of belonging. You were taught to believe, not directly, but subtly, that money changes people, that the rich are cold, that wanting too much makes you greedy, that prosperity means losing your roots. And because of that, your mind created a hidden rule. I can grow, but not too much. I can win, but I can't look like I want it too badly. I can succeed, but I need to stay small enough to stay loved. These beliefs shape your every decision, from what you ask for to what you settle for. They dictate how loudly you speak about your goals, how confidently you present your ideas, how courageously you step into the next version of yourself. But here's the truth. You were never meant to carry that shame. It isn't yours. It was passed down. It was modeled. It was absorbed. You inherited ideas about money, success, and self-worth from people who were just trying to survive, who believed staying small was safer, who thought invisibility was protection. But their story doesn't have to be yours. Right now, you have the chance to interrupt the cycle, to recognize that shame is not a sign of weakness. It's a signal that you're standing at the edge of a belief that no longer serves you. And once you see that clearly, you have a choice. Will you keep shrinking to stay accepted? Or will you expand? Not in arrogance, but in alignment. Because real success, the kind that lasts, isn't about proving anything to the world. It's about allowing yourself to take up space, to become, to receive without guilt, to grow without apology. So let's bring this down to earth. What can you do, starting today, to begin rewriting your internal money story? Here are 5 practical steps. 1. Name the belief. What's the voice in your head saying when you think about earning more, raising your rates, investing, or stepping up? Write it down. See it for what it is. A belief, not a truth. 2. Trace it back. Where did it come from? A parent? A teacher? Community message? Once you locate the source, you take away its power. You realize it is not your voice. It is a voice you were taught to trust. 3. Redefine what wealth means to you. Remove the moral weight. Wealth is not good or bad. It's a tool. It's power. And power in the hands of the right people changes the world for the better. That can be you. For surround yourself with new models. Seek out people in real life or online who are financially empowered and emotionally grounded, who use money as a force for generosity, growth, and healing. 5. Practice receiving. Say thank you when someone praises your work. Charge what you're worth, and then some. Allow yourself to want more, not out of greed, but out of vision. Because here's the thing, the world doesn't benefit from your shame. It benefits from your brilliance, from your impact, from your willingness to grow and lead and rise fully. Richard's story doesn't have to end with quiet sabotage. Neither does yours. If you choose to rewrite the story now, not just in your bank account, but in your belief system, then this isn't the end. It's your beginning. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like wanting more made you feel guilty? Like success would somehow distance you from the people you love, make others see you differently. Maybe you've caught yourself holding back, not because you couldn't go further, but because deep down you were afraid of what it might mean if you did. If that hits home, leave a comment below. You don't need to write a novel, just a few words or even a feeling. You'll be surprised how many others are wrestling with the same silent beliefs. At Cashfrenia, our mission is simple: to explore the invisible forces that shape our financial behavior, the emotional roots of our money choices, and the beliefs that were never truly ours to begin with. If this episode helped you see something new in yourself, or it gave language to something you've felt for years, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications. Share it with someone who's struggling with the weight of success. You never know how much difference one perspective can make. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out the other videos here on the channel. Each one is designed to uncover a hidden piece of your relationship with money, mindset, and self-worth. Thank you for being here, for listening, for reflecting. Remember, you don't have to choose between belonging and abundance. You don't have to stay small to stay loved. You don't have to carry shame to prove you're still grounded. Your growth doesn't betray your roots. It honors them. See you in the next one.